And now we go join UKNERFWAR in his workshop as he talks about how he manages to turn order into chaos in his tiny little loft space. Over the next 2 hours he will be taking workshop tours with a number of our community members, and hopefully we don't lose him in the black hole of mess that is his workshop. Over to you, UKNERFWAR.
I want to sort of give everybody a view of today is the various different types of workspaces we have. So a workspace doesn't have to be a massive industrial unit with all of the tools. It can be, you know, your kitchen table, or it can be next to your PC. As long as you're producing stuff, then that's your workspace. And one of the most interesting things for me is how people create workspaces that work for them. So if you've got a very small workspace, or you're having to share a space for other activities, so if you've got it on your dining room table, how do you then make that work? How do you pack it all away, and how do you manage storage and things like that? And they're all sort of fairly interesting things I find about workspaces. Now, my own workspace, my very first one, I started off on my kitchen table over 10 years ago. And then from the kitchen table, because the wife kept yelling at me because I had to keep moving stuff, I then moved it out into the utility room. So then my workspace was on top of our tumble dryer out in the utility room. And that wasn't great because, you know, it was just rubbish. Then when we moved house shortly after I had kids, and then the new house we had a dedicated garage, which is where I am in now. And that started off storing sort of all of the stuff that we needed. So it was, we had sort of all the gardening equipment out here as well. So even though I had a large garage, actually my dedicated Nerf workspace was quite small. And over the years, I've managed to get rid of a load of the junk, which has been really nice. So I've got a couple of sheds out in the garden now, so the lawnmower and everything's been hoofed out there. All the kids' stuff's been hoofed up in the loft. So now, finally, I have a workspace which gives me the scope to be able to do more. And I've got various other hobbies as well as Nerf, which are all sort of quite technical and involve fixing and mending and machining and stuff. So now I have the space to be able to do that. And it's been quite a journey to get here, because even though I had this garage, shortly after I moved in and made it my own space, the roof collapsed, and then I lost a lot of equipment because of that, because it was raining and everything got smashed and ruined. So then I had to fix the roof, and then after we did that, it leaked and it was cold. So we've very, very slowly sealed it up and insulated it. So now at least it's at the very last, it's warm and it's dry and it's relatively well equipped. So to give you a little tour around, it's not the biggest garage in the world, but I think I've made it my own. And this is going to be a little bit janky because I'm going to have to carry you around. So if you just bear with me a moment, we will do the thing. Right. So we will start over here. So there's the door over here. That's a big flight case full of stuff. Toolboxes. So because I do more than just Nerf, I've got millions of tools, and having lots of different toolboxes like I used to have really sucked. So fairly recently I invested in this chap, and it keeps everything in it. I'm not going to bore you by going through all the drawers and stuff, because, you know, you've seen one drawer full of screwdrivers, you've seen a million drawers of screwdrivers, haven't you? So moving over, right down in the corner there, I've got my air compressor. And if you know about air compressors, you'll know that it really isn't the best place for one, because when they're running all day, they get really, really hot. But I've got, you can't see it in there, but actually that draws in air from outside and has got an exhaust vent. So overheating isn't too much of an issue, but I don't use it an awful lot anyway. So we've got this is sort of like my machining bench. So we've got bench drill there with a grinder. The drill's super handy. I don't use it an awful lot for Nerf, but it's good for sort of a lot of other projects I have. Yeah, grinder as well. Again, not massively great for Nerf, but it does have a belt sander built into it, and that's quite good for sort of sanding down parts if I'm ever making sort of custom panels and things out of sheet plastic. That's good for that. The bandsaw, which you should all be familiar with, is probably the tool I use the most for modding, because if you need to make precision cuts through shells for integrations or anything, or even if you're just working with sheet material, then bandsaws are really good. They make really super easy work of it. And because it's only one of the very small bench ones, it's got a very thin blade, which means you can make really tight turns. Because if your bandsaw's got too wide a blade, then you can only really cut in straight lines through it. But you get the one with a nice thin blade, or even a scroll saw would be even better. You can get really tight turns, which means you can sort of do intricate shapes. Moving on, I've got my lathe, which is just sort of like a relatively cheap hobby lathe. I used to have a really big one, but that became massively impractical. So I got rid of that, and I've got this one now. And this is more than enough for Nerf parts. And this is the one that I did all of my flywheel prototyping on when we arrived with the Bulldog flywheel. So all of the prototypes for that were made on this chap, as well as other parts as well. So down here, I've got all sorts of storage, all sorts of junk, little plastic drawers. And then there's a whole lot of mess along here. There's all the shelves and stuff. Again, there's other projects and other hobbies going on there. So I've got lots of tools. That's all stuff for fixing cars and modifying my van, which, you know, we won't get into. Lots and lots of Nerf stuff. And then we get slightly more interesting. We come over here to my laser cutter, which uses a high intensity laser beam to cut your materials. So with this one, it's a 40 watt CO2 laser, which, if that means anything to you, is relatively interesting. But with this, I can cut plastics and woods up to about 5 or 6 millimeters thick. And all I have to do is design an image on the computer, create a vector image, and then send it to this, and this will just cut it out. And it's super handy. If I have a commission that needs like a custom nameplate or some sort of really intricate engraving or something, you can just bash it out on this super easy, and it works great. So I don't know if you're particularly interested, but we're going to have a look anyway. Looking inside, it's sort of out of commission at the moment because I've moved it very recently, but it sort of works a bit like a 3D printer, I guess. But instead of having an extruding nozzle on the end, it's got a series of mirrors and lenses which focus the beam down onto the workpiece. So that cuts that out. And very recently, I've been tinkering with 3D printing. I've got my first 3D printer, which is a Flash Forge Dreamer, which was very kindly given to me by Nerf Shack, because he knew that I needed to get off the pot and actually get into some 3D printing. So far, my journey with 3D printing has been absolutely abysmal because it doesn't work great, and I'm too much of a monkey to work out how to use it. But we'll get there, and it will be fun. And that's workbench. Obviously, we need to go back to the workbench. So come over here, and this is basically where the surface upon which I do most of the engineering and modding and stuff. There's another toolbox there, which has got pretty much exclusively Nerf tools in it. So everything I use for designing and creating is right there in that toolbox. And it's handy because it's portable as well. So if I end up having to go to another event, or every now and then we'll go to an event and somebody will contact me and say, you know, this isn't working, I need you to get it to fix. So I can just take that whole toolbox with me, and then I can sort of make repairs in the field and build things, and it's super handy. A lot of tactical gear and stuff gets stored up there. The very, very modest blaster wall right there. So it's got my HPA long shot on there, my Worker Dominator, and my NG4 Amarok from my 3D base, which is possibly my favourite sidearm at the moment. So that's kind of it. That's the tour of my workshop. I mean, hopefully it's sort of fairly interesting, maybe. I don't know. But it goes to, it's been a long journey to get here, and to finally have a space that I can sort of do whatever I wanted. And the nicest thing about having a dedicated space is that you can leave a project where it is and then come back to it. So rather than having to clear up every night and then the next day you get the project out and you have to get all the parts out, it can get quite frustrating sometimes, because you not only lose a little bit of time trying to get everything ready, but you lose a little bit of impetus for doing it, because you know, you've got that extra effort of getting everything ready. But having a dedicated workspace means I can just walk away from a project, just leave it where it is, walk away from it, and then come back, you know, the next day or that evening or wherever, and just pick up where I left off. And that's sort of the main thing for me, really. So yeah, that's kind of it for me, really. We need to moving on later on. We've got I've got another hour and a half or so talking to lots of different people. I'm going to be talking to Kyle in just a few moments, who's quite new at the hobby and has got a modest Nerf space. And it's going to be interesting talking to him about his workshop journey and how, you know, he uses his workspace. And then at 1 o'clock we've got Frankenzilla and Tom from Foam Data Services. We're talking about their workspaces, both of which have got quite a large workspace. So it's going to be interesting to talk to those. At 1:30, we're talking with Fancy Impact Blasters and Herbmeister, who have got sort of very different workspaces and very different work ethics as well. So that's going to be quite interesting. And then 2 o'clock, I'm with Al from Monkeytron Collective and Ryan and Jesse from Silverfox Industries, all the way from the US. So that's going to be exciting. So right now I've got Kyle with us. Hello, Kyle. Oh, I can't hear.
What's going on?
Say again?
I was just saying hi, everybody. What's going on?
Oh, there he is. Good.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
How are you doing? How are you doing, Kyle?
Doing pretty solid. What about yourself, man?
Good. So tell me about your workspace and about your journey getting there, because I know you're quite new to the hobby, and so you're sort of just starting your journey.
I started my journey, I think it was over a year ago, and didn't know anything about the modding community, didn't know anything about 3D printing and whatnot. I just specifically thought it was just a bunch of stock blasters from this point. I watched a little bit of Jack's videos as like a little tiny interest, but it was more of like, hey, it's more of like a niche at once in a while at this point. My experience was starting from a year ago when I started to pick up a Stampede, and for like $5 at a local thrift shop, and I was like, well, you know, I'm gonna at least start somewhere from this, and then it all cascaded down from, you know, picking up one blaster to another, and I'd just be like, you know, little kid on the shelf, I'd just be like, ooh, I like that, I want that. So then it just escalated from there. It was all now I have modded stuff. I didn't do any soldering work. I didn't do any 3D printing prior to Nerf. I didn't do almost anything when it comes to like any mods, and now I'm pretty good at it so far.
That's good. So, where's your current workspace? What are you at?
I live actually in a single dormitory, so I live in my own room. And so, to give you an idea, it's about a 13 by 10 room with some furniture that's laid all about. I do have some shelving here, and also my own 3D printer as well too, which I will show from there. So I got my bunch of darts, my filament, and my Kaiwu 3D Max also. And then, as you can see, a bunch of my highlights, my FDL, couple stripes, my Talon Claw, and others.
That's cool. So, do you have to share your workspace with any other activities or anything, or is it just dedicated Nerf space?
Oh, I kind of do as well too. That's the reason why that a lot of the stuff is actually packed up, because I also do Warhammer 40K, and I also do snowboarding in the winter time as well too. So I got my Nerf in the summertime, and then I got snowboarding in the winter time. So that way I always have a hobby throughout the whole entire year.
No, that's cool. So how do you manage sort of storage and moving stuff around and sort of keeping things on the go? Do you just sort of stuff it all in a cupboard, or?
Yeah, so a bunch of my own shelving is a little bit down here. So I'll just go ahead and show real quick that the shelving that I use is just down here. So what I'll do is normally I'll just pull it out and then just pick out of what I need from all from there. I try to keep it mostly organized from there. But then there's also my little pull-out drawer as well too that I also use to work on my mods, work on whatever I'm working on during that period of time.
So are there any sort of big projects you're working on at the moment, or is it just sort of little stuff?
It's little stuff right about now. It's more so of like getting comfortable with all the soldering work and the wiring and whatnot. Not that I have anything big, though. Once I started my first strife, I just want to keep throwing more and more, strifes to be wired up. And, I'm the multi-configurator throughout this point. All I just want to do is now take multiple amount of cages, multiple amount of like flywheels and motors, and just be like, hey, I'm the go-to. I've already done, XYZ all from there.
Do you sort of have to be careful about what you're buying though, so you don't sort of get overwhelmed with piles of stuff? Or
yeah, I learned that with Warhammer 40K, right? And some people can also relate to this as well too. When you buy, let's say, models, and yet you don't assemble them, you don't paint them, you don't do anything with them, you leave it in a box, right? It just ends up just being in storage. So I also have to have the same discipline as well too when it comes to the Nerf hobby as well too. You just got to make sure that you finish your project of whatever you're working on during a period of time, and then move on to buying the next project you want to be able to work on.
Yeah, that's a good discipline to have, and unfortunately, I don't possess. But it's interesting to see sort of the way you're sort of having to cope with it. So tell me about your 3D printer. Have you been in 3D printing long, or?
No, I am totally brand new into 3D printing. When I was researching upon 3D printing, I had a bunch of the mainstream people being able to say, "Oh, this printer's good," but I wanted to bite the not bite my tongue, but bite the bullet on something a little bit off far-fetched, where not a lot of people know about it, but it has a great feature set. I got into 3D printing, having that enthusiasm, knowing I can being able to keep on going, and just being able to print whatever color I want, whatever blaster I want from there. I'm still getting it configured. It's just almost like you in some ways as well too. Like it's just been a total poop show like the whole entire time.
Yeah, I've recently discovered that 3D printing is a hobby in all of it in itself. So by getting a 3D printing, not just buying a tool that you can use to do Nerf, you're actually starting a new hobby, and it's frustrating as hell.
Yeah, it can really be a frustrating. I remember sometimes of when I took one of the MOSFET boards and then all of a sudden I soldered too much to the point to where one of the copper leads actually started stripping from the MOSFET board, and I was like, okay, I got to be able to control myself as well too. I just want it done. Like, I know, and I can relate to everybody else. I just be like, I want this done, and now I just put it on the shelf. I just like chuck it out of the way.
So, you've been working sort of on anything cosmetic, or is it mainly just sort of assembling kits and electronics that you've been doing there?
Just assembling and mods from there. I'm not too big into like all the cosmetic stuff because that would require me to being able to go out and buy the paint and still learn about something way like out of my own mindset, because I'm not much of what would you say, a creative kind of person. Yes, right. But I'm more so of like, hey, I'll follow the directions as it goes, and I've already kept going back to YouTube videos again and again. And I like to being able to thank the community for just giving us like the tools and making sure that we can follow along with the instructions that they give to us, because without them, then I would have not gotten in the hobby. I would have not thrown like my money into some of the modding stuff and having some of the potential out of it.
Yeah, and I totally understand that as well. I think whatever level you're at with creating, I think having a community of content creators that are basically just doing their own thing, but where you can either follow their instruction directly, or you'll just simply be inspired by what they're doing and then create your own thing off of that. I think that's one of the things that's sort of quite compelling about the Nerf hobby and the community that surrounds it.
It really opens up your mind towards what you can and what you can do in basic. When I was starting off with the hobby, I didn't know how to read a wiring diagram for basic electronics. So let me give you an example, right? So modded Rapid Strike, right? The wiring diagram is so confusing all throughout. And yet I was able to actually read it after getting some little footholds and little steps into doing a couple of stripes, and then I throw myself into doing a rapid strike and buying a couple of parts like Neo Rhinos and then Serenity cages, and then buying a totally different motor as well too. The basic parts that you can really get behind. And so after I was doing all the wiring and looking at the diagram, I was like, okay, now this is starting to really click from there.
Yeah. So you say that it's mostly sort of soldering and the electronics that you're doing at the moment.
Yes, and then oh, sorry, go ahead.
That's all right. I was just about to say, do you do that all at the desk you're at now, or?
Yes, indeed. I actually pull out the little. So you saw the little pull-out desk that I have right here. So this is my computer space plus my little pull-out desk. So I just throw my soldering equipment on there. I put my handy tools. I put everything on there, and I just plop it down, and I just get to work from there. Even when it comes to, let's say, even when it's not soldering work with, let's say, a Nexus Pro and all aftermarket parts from front to back, all from there, it can take a good amount of space, but You don't need a lot of space. You just need to know of, okay, where's this part at this given time. Eventually, I'm going to get to a point where I'm going to start using a labeler, and then I'm going to just take a labeler and do a couple labels on a couple of shelves to say, okay, now I can find this part. Now I can find what I'm working on at this given moment.
That's actually quite an interesting point, because I found that when you've got a small workspace, you have to be a bit more organised. You can't just leave everything laying around. You've got to sort of know how to access everything quickly. And I had a bit of a tidy up before we went live today, but it dawned on me that now I've got a larger workspace, I've also got more stuff and more mess. So it's interesting that a smaller workspace is not necessarily less productive if you've got, the discipline to be able to keep it tidy and keep it organised.
Yeah, and especially when it comes to where you are currently living, at the same time that you're delving into your own hobby as well too. I mean, shoot, I got my own bed right here, yet I got my own workspace right here as well too. I mean, you don't have to have you don't have to have separate rooms in one end to another. Just separate yourself. You can integrate it all into one room, just making sure that as long as you know where is where.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that's sort of the crux of what I wanted to sort of explore with this section as well, is that how, not necessarily having a very, very small space is not necessarily detrimental to sort of producing things. So thank you very much, Kyle, for joining us. It's been interesting to talk to you, and it's been lovely to have you here with us.
Yes, definitely, and I thank everybody else. I thank also the men and women for the servicing as well too. You're always in my heart. That's why I always carry a heart with a gold and freedom as well too. And I also thank the community members and just the players itself, because without the players, then I could just be shooting at a wall the whole entire time as well too.
Marvellous. Thank you very much, Kyle. So we're going to go to a little ad break now, and afterwards we'll be back with Frankenzilla and Foam Data Services. Stay tuned. We'll see you in a bit.
Here we come. We're up and down your street. We're gonna paint all your plasters and make it look real sweet. Hey, hey, we're the Monkeytron. People say we monkey around, but we're too busy nerfing to put anybody down. Here we come. We're up and down your street. We're gonna paint all your plasters and make it look real sweet.
Ever since I was a small child, I've always had a gift for playing with toys and breaking things, but it wasn't until I discovered that social media would profit from me prattling on aimlessly about children's toys and then uploading it to the internet that I finally found the validation of complete strangers that my life had been missing. The snappily lame substitute.
And now we return to UKNERFWAR in his workshop with Tom from Foam Data Services and Frankenzilla from somewhere down under.
Welcome back, guys. It's back, me, Kevin, from UKNERFWAR. We're talking workshops again. I have with me right now, I have Dwayne, otherwise known as Frankenzilla, and I have Tom from Foam Data Services. Both of these guys are quite well established in the community. They've got lots of projects under their belt, but they've also both got quite large dedicated workspaces. So it's going to be interesting to hear from them. Hello, guys. How are you?
Oh, good. For midnight in New Zealand.
Yeah. What's it like in the future?
Pretty good, actually.
So, Dwayne, I want to talk to you first. Just give us an overview of your workshop and what makes you tick?
Makes it tick. Basically, my workshop is a 6-car garage, which I have X amount of space. Probably my work area is probably 50 feet in length by probably about 20 feet wide. I'll find some photos. Oh, here we go. You can see that?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's just some shelves with stuff on it, which is normal. Yeah, so it's just holding just all my springs and paint and jars of darts, and just a little container full of 3D printed parts. I do have a little 3D printer. 3D printers over here are extremely expensive. You're paying probably $900 to $1,000 for an entry level.
Wow.
Something like a Prusa is easily $1,800. So things are a bit expensive. One wall with cubby holes. Pretty much just your standard plastic sheet and all the rest, and all the brass and stuff. And it's just my workshop is a mess at the moment. Blasters everywhere. Masks up on the wall for Quick Flag NZ, of course. Well, as like you said, you have a toolbox. I have a toolbox from when I used to be a fabricator of custom motorbikes.
Oh, wow.
So I've still got all my tools. And there's boxes underneath, and of course up above there's a FTW Stampede and the Baba Judo, which is the rough cut strife. Crimson Recon, my tinted red Prophecy, which I did before Worker came out with theirs, and my FTW Cedar. Of course, my new additions are a little drill press and a little bandsaw, a wood one, so it's got the slightly wider blade on it, which, as you said, is perfect for cutting up shells.
Absolutely.
Yep.
It makes it so much easier, doesn't it?
Oh, I mean, I've been using a Dremel for such a long time, and going out and just splurging and spending money and buying stuff, but definitely, I think the next hot item will be a little mini lathe like the one you got.
Right.
Just to machine parts up. But yes, just a shelf. It's got work in progress blasters and flywheel parts and stuff like that. Ignore the drum kit, my brother's Muso. Same wall again, but those cubby holes are just for mags. So Nerf mags, and the ones on the sides are just Stefan Dart mags. And you can see there's the Stampede and my Cedar. World's longest commission. Rebel. I was known as the Ribcage Blaster. I've had that for 3 years. I don't think the guy's ever going to pay me for it, so I'm going to keep it. It's 5 tubes of 115 gram rods of epoxy to create that. It's very heavy. Just more cubby holes. You can see Talon mags. It's just a stack of Talon mags in there. A Retaliator. Whole lot of Rampages and Raiders. A clear purple one up there. Sonic Ice. My Retaliator. My homemade Spamp there. My Retaliator. With the skull and the lower jaw, which is part of the pump grip. And the stock is actually quite comfortable, actually. And that was when I moved in, so you can see it was quite a big space, really. Those benches were there when we moved in, so quite fortunate, really. early progress pics of when we first moved in. So that's, I mean, it's quite a good space. I mean, it's long enough that you can stand at the garage door and shoot into a box. You get a good estimate of range and or FPS if you want. More garage. Of course, the
Looks like you've got quite a decent amount of light in there as well.
yeah, there's got quite a lot of fluoro tubes up top, and it does get a bit dark, but it's got quite high ceilings and quite a lot of tubes. Typical blaster wall. As you can see, there's lots of retaliators. It's a few other things, and again, another shot of that. We're pretty much back to the end. Yeah. There you go.
Okay, that's cool. Thank you for that.
No
So,
worries.
is your space is it dedicated just to Nerf, or do you sort of do other tinkerings in there as well?
The whole garage as it is I've got my Nerf space. I've got access. We've got an air compressor and we've got a linisher, but that's parked over the other side. And then my brother, he makes amp cabinets and
Right.
speaker boxes and stuff like that. And so he's got his own little dedicated space, and then there's kind of like everybody else's like storage space and stuff like that. So we've got our own little workshop.
No, that's really cool. And sort of, how do you find? Obviously, you've got quite a lot of stuff in your workshop. Does it ring true that the larger the space, the more stuff you get, or are you sort of fairly organised?
Tom's nodding his head a lot. Quite true. I mean, I went from a 20-foot garage, it's like a single garage that was crammed on one side, and I probably only had maybe 40 blasters total. Now I have 80 something and boxes everywhere. And I think over the 2 years in this Nerf cave, we've brought more tools because we're quite comfortable now. We've probably got maybe 20, 30 years in this place. It's a huge house.
Right.
And it comes with its own Nerf playing fields. So we have a paddock or two. So
Brilliant.
once we mow the grass, we can actually, because Quick Flag NZ lost their grounds at COVID. We had an airsoft arena, which we used to play at nights, but then they wanted to charge too much. So they sort of killed that idea. So I says, I've got a humongous big front yard that's basically the size of a small park, and quite a big backyard. So for summertime we'll probably be playing in sort of in the field itself. But yeah, as you say, the whole collection has grown now that I've got a bigger space, and it's just like it's a little bit out of control. And it's like I look at it and go, well, I think if Big L had given me a bit more time, I would have actually thrown in some blaster prizes. Maybe next year.
Maybe.
Like fully complete blasters off my wall. I'll just pluck something off my wall. And I have done that. I had a ARL Fortnite blaster, which I chopped down and put a goblin face on the front. Sculpted. I gave that to Biggs for his birthday. And people are like going, it's a $400 or $500 blaster you just gave away. And it's like, but I mean, I build these things, these like works of art, I guess, and I just give them away. It's because I've got a really good, really paying job. I'm a container repairer. I make really good money. And I just make things for my hobby, and most of the time I just give them away. So I do a lot of blaster exchanges to states and all that stuff. So I've got something that I want. I'll go, all right, here's 5 blasters, take your pick. My first Cedar, my first Exus, they all were blaster exchanges. There's probably, easily $500 each blasters, which I could have sold, to the right person. And I just went, just give them away. I'll
Yeah.
take that Sonic. What was it? I wanted a Sonic Centurion because I was going to cut it up. So I swapped my cedar, which is the rotten to the core one with all the skulls and like that. So I'll probably do the same thing again. I'll talk to Big Al and say, I'll put up my Babad Juju, my Rapid Strike Raven for a prize next year. So
Yeah.
all complete.
It's a good way to be in the hobby where you're sort of essentially you're just building for yourself, aren't you? And they're not commissions. You just walk into your workshop and build whatever you want.
I've done commissions in the past, but I find it's just, I don't know. I mean, I've done commissions for friends cheaply and all this, and I've done birthday commissions for people and all this, like pink stripes and things like that. But yeah, I do it because I love it. It's,
yeah, absolutely.
It's my thing. It's I have sold blasters in the past, but now it's just like, well, I'm old now. I've got a good job. I just build what I want, and then if somebody says, "Oh, I really like that," I'll just sell it. I mean, I might have just finished it, and it's like, "Oh, do you want this?" Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's good. So over to Tom. Now, we've all seen inside your workshop various times, Tom. So do you want to talk us through it?
Well, do you want to play the stream, and then the stream kind of I've got that video all set up. If you haven't shown that yet, do you want to show that, and then I can Q&A, and we can have a chat about it afterwards.
Yeah, let's do that.
Hi, it's Tom here, and welcome to my shop. As you can see from my fancy montage, it's not the tidiest shop in the world, and this mess is dedicated to Mr. Kevin Bullard. As you can see, there's a lot of stuff in here. I'm standing right on the very spot where pretty much all of my Nerf content was painted. I just paint in this open area. Obviously there's a lot of vehicles in here at the moment, which is one of the reasons why I haven't put out so much Nerf content, is because I've been really busy. Virtually everything I have has kind of been broken at one point or another this year, and there was a lot of jobs that I had to get done that I was doing during lockdown, because I'm motivated by playing, and if you can't play, kind of modding is a bit boring because I want to see it in action and I want to use it. So I've been doing a lot more automotive stuff this last 12 months, and I've had a load of stuff to build with my son. So we've been kind of putting the shop back into its main and most important use, which is keeping my car collection nice and dry and giving me a space to work. So pretty much all my blaster painting was done right here on this spot. I just paint in the open shop, and I don't have a booth. And what I do then is, as soon as the stuff's painted, I put it in the tent and dry it, and that area I can climate control a little bit, which is quite problematic because England's not known for being dry and warm and not very humid. So there's not very many times of the year where I have to compromise. I don't have to compromise much on something, and it can be very tricky working in a space like this where you can't heat or control the environment to actually spray really high quality stuff. So I'm going to take you guys off the tripod and we'll give you a little quick walking tour. You've seen the montage and I'll just run you through a few of the key features of the shop. This is the main work area in the front here, just here. And at the moment I've got a MX-5 or Miata for Americans hood in there that I got from a scrapyard that I'm just kind of tidying up. And there's a few other bits and pieces there. So if we come through, here is the van park. And the furthest van belongs to my son. It's a 1985-6 model year Caravelle GL. It's had a 50mm drop all round. It's got adjustable coilovers and it's had a lot of fun stuff done to the suspension, and it's about halfway through being painted. Obviously my van here, which you've all seen before, it's been in a couple of my videos. And then we can go to the back of the shop, and this is one of my buddy's bugs. This is booked in for finishing in probably late this year, early next year, and you can see more van carnage. We're currently working inside the wheel arch of this van. And then my chop is here, which I built some years ago. It's a custom chop. It's based off an old mountain bike frame, and it's got a little tiny kiddie bike front wheel and like a mountain bike front back wheel. We're over at the grip blasting station. There's the homebrewed blasting cabinet. Here's the main blasting cabinet, and stuff goes in dirty, and then you can spray sand and under pressure over all of it and blast it clean. I do use this for doing Nerf blasters. I have done some experiments and I'll put a video out about that shortly, just for sanding it and speeding things up. So we can, if we come back around, I'll take you guys into the tent past the van. At the moment my van here has got a thrown rod, so I've cooked the motor. Now, in the tent, there's lots of projects. This was meant to be my Nerf workbench over here, and all this was set up for filming. There's additional lighting under here that can come down onto the bench, and it was designed to be able to mount my cameras, and this far end was meant to be where I could leave stuff. As you can see, that plan's kind of gone out the window in lockdown. I've been playing with some of my little model railway bits and pieces, making all kinds of random stuff. It's actually very, very small scale, so it's N gauge for those of you that might be interested in that. Everything on there is made in the shop. And then over here is the blaster and game storage pile. Some of my game stuff, the rest of my game stuff is down under there. These blasters were donated by a local player for me to pass on to other young people once we reopen and get them out. And as you can see, this is used for extensive dumping. It was meant to be my kind of studio space. One day I'll clear this out, but it's quite handy to have for the moment. And all the blasters that I ever built were all dried right here. I have a heater that controls this space, and I clear that rack, and then I put my shells on there to dry. So that is the tent. Now, just a quick shot of my boredom breaker. It's nearly finished. I've actually driven this on the road now. It's done 250 road miles, but I've been having some trouble with the wideband gauge, which is in here, and the ECU, which I've got to play about with. And you can see it's had some FTS touches put on it, and I'll do a big full run through on those. So there's my shop tour, and you can see that they've got a lot on in here, and we've also got a lot of room, which is good and bad. Other people have nice small compact workshops that they can tidy. I just have a really big barn, and I can just keep filling it with crap until I can't walk through it, and then we ship a load of stuff out and clear it all out, rinse and repeat. So thank you very much for tuning in, and I'll get back to you later today for the rest of the Foam Fest live content.
Well, thank you very much, Tom, for that video. It's an interesting way to look around your workshop, certainly. Do you want to tell us a bit about it?
I was really lucky with that shop. I started off with a 60-foot by 15-foot pig breeding shed that I found. A guy had a pig breeding unit he was no longer using, and it hadn't been used for about 25 years. And fortunately, the pig residue had dried out somewhat, and he behaved as an access door. You know, if you drop the access door, you're going to clean up the pig crap in the shop. So I started with that, and it kind of grew from there. I was a hot rodder before I was a Nerf builder, and I lost my job back in 2014. And when I lost my job, I lost the means to keep doing too much car stuff because of it is expensive. And you know, anybody who's built cars and bikes is just, if you want to set fire to large piles of money, that is a very good way to do it.
Oh yes.
Only boats and aircraft are more expensive. And, so I had the pig shed for quite a while, and I built a couple of cars there before I was doing Nerf. And that shed came about because I lost the pig shed. They developed that complex of barns. It was a 19th century model farm. It's like a C shape with the house, and then a C-shaped barn and a yard and stuff. And down here, that's just worth money for holiday cottages and things. So they redeveloped my barn, and when they redeveloped my barn, I was lucky that the guy that had that barn was looking for a tenant, and when I moved in, it was just one big space, and I used like a corner of it, and he steadily divided it up. So as you can see, the theory, the bureaucracy theory about it expanding to fill the available space, or holds true with hobbies, that hobbies do expand to fill the available space. And basically, my big problem is that I'm a bit of a polymath, and I like to do lots of different things, and I get bored easily. So I can do a lot of stuff. If all I can do is Nerf, I'll do Nerf. But if there's options of doing other things and something interesting comes along, I'll go, oh, shiny, and then I'll start doing that. So that sanity space has been very, very useful this year, because it's meant that I haven't been stuck inside the house driving my family nuts. I've been able to go and hide in my shed.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
that's true for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. So you guys have obviously sort of got quite a good selection of tools in your workshops. What would you say is your favourite?
Power file.
A nail file.
No. Power file. You know, like the little, sort of like a Dremel.
Oh, okay. I know what you mean. Yeah.
A mini limiting belt.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're a really handy tool, man. They're useful.
But a cordless one.
Oh, brilliant.
Cordless. Awesome.
Yeah, I have two tools. I'm too much of a tightwad to buy a power file, so my hand file is a monster tool that gets used for loads of stuff. It's extremely useful for if you want to get stuff properly flattened off and you want to do shell shaping, but you don't want to make an unholy mess. I'm actually sitting at the other half of my workshop, which is the kitchen table, and all the clean work, all the wiring, and all of the soldering is all done in my kitchen. And but when it's too cold to work in the shop, my shop is really cold in winter and really hot in summer, so it's a difficult balance. There's times when I end up working on the kitchen table like everybody else. So yeah, my hand file is my number one tool, probably, because it's so versatile and it never runs out of battery and it does lots of jobs. Good set of hand files, save you a fortune. And then probably my sandblasting cabinet is my second favourite tool, just because it saves so much time. It is a massive, massive time saver after my spray gun, obviously, because if you can spray 12 shells for £2 with 2K primer, why would you not? The compressor powers my blasting cabinet as well. So probably I'd say that the compressor is the second best tool in my shop because it does so many things. But the blasting cabinet's been a lifesaver.
It's interesting that you say a file, though, because one of the things I was going to say is that sort of when you get bigger tools and bigger workshops, you always go back to hand tools, because no matter how fancy a saw you've got, you can always get a better finish with like a razor saw. So there's always going to be that project where you need to go back to basics with it.
Yeah, I would say probably everyone knows that I'm an analog guy, and usually hand tools, the beauty of hand tools is the control they offer, but it depends. If you're scaling things, hand tools don't always scale well. So if you've got like 5 kilos of filler to sand and shape, then obviously you're going to want something a bit more meaty to do the shaping. But I tend to work slightly differently to other people in that if I'm making a shape, I'll make it in plastic or in plastic sheet or in, I won't make it in epoxy. Same with the joints. If I want to bring in gaps, I don't do a lot of integration. So I'd probably shortcut a lot of that really heavy lifting.
That's awesome. Well, thank you very much for joining me here, guys. Especially to you, Frankenzilla. I know it's the middle of the night over there down under, so thank you very much for joining us.
All good.
And thank you, Tom, for showing us around your workshop in such wonderful style.
Thank you, mate. It was a pleasure, and I left it messy just for you.
Thank you very much. I'll see you later, guys.
Yeah.
And now we return to UKNERFWAR, back in his workshop. Now he is hosting the team from Fancy Impact Blasters and Herbmeister as they continue their exploration of nerfing workshops from around the world. Over to you, UKNERFWAR.
Welcome back, guys. So we're going from some massive workspaces to a contrast, a relatively large workspace and a tiny little workspace. So I've got the guys from Fancy Impact Blasters. That's difficult to say. With me here, and I've got Herb from Herbmeister Nerf with me here as well.
Hello.
So hello, guys, and thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
So I would like to speak to Herb first, because if nobody's heard of Herb or nobody knows of Herb yet, he is quite a young guy with some serious machining skills, and he's been producing a lot of parts for all of the HPA blasters that are currently in the UK community. So he's been producing a lot of valves, and I can't even list the things he makes for us, but it's interesting to see the humble origins of them. So we'll talk to you first, please, Herb. How are you?
Well, I'm good, thank you. This is my humble workshop, basically my bedroom, but stuffed to the brim with all sorts of machines that I've accumulated over the years. And machining is a real passion of mine. It's like you're saying about 3D printers, it's a whole other hobby in itself. And I just love the satisfying, like making stuff shiny. It's brilliant.
So what have you got as part of your factory as such?
Well, behind me you can see I've got my milling machine here. I've got a drill press, and then over here I've got I have my lathe, which is possibly the most useful tool that I've got. And so that's really handy for making all sorts of springers and things like that. I love, flywheels. That's a little bit borderline for me, but I really enjoy making, air blasters. Basically, that's just what floats my boat.
It's all basically just plumbing, isn't it? The air blaster. So having a lathe is possibly the most important tool for creating air blasters, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. Just like when I first got here, when I was maybe 5 years ago, I started looking at homemades on Nerf and stuff like that, and that really got me interested in. So I started building this rainbow pump here, and I was just doing it in DT at school and at lunchtimes and stuff like that, and I had no idea about any machining, anything like that. And I was like, how am I going to make this plunger head? like trying to laser cut various discs out of things. Wasn't really the tools, and then eventually they showed me how to use the lathe. That really just caught my interest, and here I am, machining non-stop, basically.
So, what sort of things do you? I know I'd sort of bumbled over what you actually do, but what sort of things do you actually make from your workshop?
Well, I do lots of sort of components. So I make lots of barrels, various things. This is a hybrid barrel, so it's got brass sleeved inside it, and these are like threaded, so you can put them in jet blasters and supercores and things like that. So I like modularity and things like that. But then I've also got all sorts of like plunger heads, everything really. I've built lots of stuff from scratch, so I'm a massive cheapskate basically, and I love just building everything myself. So I've got like here, this is one of my designs, and you can see this is all machined here, and pretty much, and it just really allows a lot of freedom with the design that you might not get with 3D printing. You really can, you're not limited by, tension, which will just snap a 3D print immediately. So it really gives you another aspect on the design. And I'm enjoying seeing lots of other people starting to put machine parts in their blasters, like the Venturi and stuff like that.
Absolutely. And it's just sort of combining the two sort of technologies of 3D printing and machining is absolutely the sort of way forward for air-powered blasters as well. So,
yeah.
So I'm interested to know how you, and more importantly, the people you live with, deal with the noise of your workshop, because I can imagine it can get quite noisy in there.
Well, it does definitely get quite noisy. I mean, especially, actually, I'd say the machines aren't the worst thing. It's the music blaring over the machines, which is the most irritating for people. But I mean, yeah, the chits are slightly annoying, going all over the floor and stuff like that, because I've got possibly the worst carpet for it, which is all like a relatively thick pile carpet that just literally it's like a little forest of swarf in there. But yeah, I mean, I deal with it, and I'm happy to put up with it because I don't really have any other option. I must machine things, so I'll deal with it.
No, it's good.
And obviously, my family are very supportive, which is good. Yeah.
So you the way you cope with it is just to drown out the machine noise with music, and everybody's happy.
Effectively, and well, I've got to. That's the reason it's all in the bedroom, because I've got to keep it contained in here. As long as it's not disrupting them too much, then it's not too bad.
So, what just completely nerdgasm. What lathe have you got?
Well, I am a bit of a Warco fanboy. I'll try and move you over.
Okay.
So here we are. It's the WM180 lathe. So it's not quite a mini lathe, but it's just the kind of the next size up. And I mean, I've done all sorts of crazy setups to get things to fit on here. I know you were saying with yours you found it fits everything on there, but I have definitely started reaching the limits of it. I was doing some long shotgun barrels for the Captain Colonel Wasp, that one, and they were like over the maximum distance between sensors of my lathe. So I ended up just having things like sticking off the end and all sorts of crazy setups to get it working.
You have to start getting really creative when you start reaching your limits, don't you?
That's something I really like about machining, is just the problem solving of it. Because obviously, unlike a 3D printer, you're limited by lots of things, by rigidity, by space, and all that kind of stuff. And that's why you've got to get really creative with it, basically.
So when you're designing a new part, do you start off on paper, or do you just get the material and just jump in and start making chips?
Well, I mainly design stuff on CAD. So I've got just Fusion 360 super handy. I do some stuff freeform, but I have a look here. This is something I did basically freeform. It was a rainbow pistol, but maximum cheaped out for a competition they were having on one of the Discord servers. and so it's trying to just get the highest FPS per dollar. So it's quite a simple build, and this is just something I did for my head because it's not, you don't really need that much drafting for that. But something more complex like pushers, that I was making these little HPA pushers and stuff like that. That's something I definitely lay out first and start thinking through what's the order of operations that I'm going to use for this. How am I going to hold this in the chuck and stuff like that?
So is that I'm assuming that's 3 separate parts. That's not one part, is it?
Yeah, this it's like, reminds me of a bit of a syringe, but this is just so it's like a normal rainbow pistol here, and then an inline clip for 6 darts, and then a threaded barrel that you put on there. And this was, I think, 35 FPS per dollar. So with a K14 in it, it was getting like 360 FPS, something like that.
Wow.
Which was pretty insane. But I kind of want to mount it on the side of a Lynx or something like that for a master key, which would be quite good fun. But I haven't got around to that yet.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what about because I know that you only fairly recently got your mill, didn't you?
Yeah, that was a lockdown acquisition. It was January that I got it, ordered it in December. And it was a bit of a trek climbing up the stairs because I'm on the 3rd floor here of a normal townhouse. So we had to literally, me and my dad, it arrived in a big crate and it weighs like 120 kilograms. And so I took it apart outside and we took it up in bits. But even then, the floor was creaking quite a bit up the stairs and stuff like that. It seems to be, I haven't noticed anything. The table has slanted slightly down a little bit, so if something will roll off. But I think it's okay. I just have to keep telling myself it's just like 2 people standing there, because I was a bit nervous before, like, oh my god, this much weight. Is it going to be safe in an old like Victorian house?
So what sort of possibilities has having a mill opened up for you compared to a lathe and a drill press?
Really, too many possibilities. When I'm designing stuff now, literally, I can do anything really. Obviously limited, it's not CNC, so I can't do a crazy shape, but I end up designing something too intricately, and then I spend like days building it. And I mean, it turns out nice, but it's not really feasible for like mass production or something like that. But yeah, obviously you can do square and like more rectangular stuff on the milling machine, rather than the lathe, which is limited to round stuff.
Yeah, definitely. So moving over to the Fancy Impact Blasters team, how are you guys?
We're great, thank you. Just looking at all these lovely machines in his bedroom.
It just makes you scream with envy, doesn't it?
Yeah, because I don't know what they do or how they work, but they make cool things.
They certainly do. So you guys, tell us a little bit about your workspace and how it's grown.
Well, 3 years ago, say, my workspace was a piece of wood about that big and that big, which I would place on the kitchen table. Now it's what you see around you. We're mobile, by the way. We can move. So we've got tables and chairs and shelves, and we're sideways. I know, we'll fix it. More shelves, but more importantly, for what we do, printers.
Yes. Everybody knows you guys. You're sort of probably most famous for 3D printing, aren't you? Because most of what you produce these days is 3D printed.
It is, yes. We started off just loving stripes and building loads of stripes things and whatnot. Paintwork, doing lots of painting. Yeah. And then we got 3D printer, and the paintwork and modifying of stock blasters kind of went to the wayside, and we did more and more 3D printing, and then more 3D printing, and now it's basically all 3D printing during lockdown.
So how many printers have you got there now?
We've got we've got 3, but one of them, to be honest, doesn't do very much anymore. It's our first printer we got was
Cetus Mark III.
Yeah, just to see how things work, see if we liked printing.
Yeah.
And we did. And then we thought we need another printer, so we went up to the Prusa, the big Prusa, and that's been our main workhorse over the last few years now, printing all our various blasters and whatnot.
We would show you, but Ross would probably mess it up again.
I might be able to make this work.
There you go. You look beautiful now. That's better.
There you go. Look,
Right. Keep hold of it.
Just keep hold of it.
Yes, I'm going to do it manually with my hand now. Right.
There we go.
Yeah, so this one here does most of the work, and this one does the rest. And this one here is jealous of all the work the others do.
That was our starter. That was our learning
curve.
printer.
Yeah.
That's where we base all our knowledge on, and what works, what doesn't work, what looks good, what doesn't look good, what worked, and what went horribly, horribly wrong.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So
it seems to be the theme of 3D printing is that there's a fairly interesting learning curve with it.
Yeah, very much so. And the slightest issue can snowball.
Yeah. So, what else do you do in your workspace? Just 3D printing? Because I assume you do a load of assembly as well.
yeah, we do. Well, like Ross has already said, predominantly we do a lot of 3D printing of complete blasters, parts, aesthetics, add-ons that people contact us for. We do painting. I've got other hobbies as well. I don't know if anyone has noticed, but there is the odd smattering of my RC car bits dotted around that I also tinker with and quite often have to fix and repair and etc. We do wiring as well in electronics. We've got desktop power supplies where we can test stuff and without having to risk connecting up a LiPo and melting stuff.
Yeah, those power supplies have been really useful.
So yeah, we do a smattering of all sorts really, and whatever anyone's after, 9 times out of 10 we can probably do it. And if it's just a little bit above ours, we've got the 4th member of the team, Phil, who is very strong on the electronic side of things. So if we get stuck, it's usually a case of Phil, help us.
He would be here, but he's not in our bubble, so unfortunately,
yeah.
It's been a bit of a pain having bubbles and whatnot, and it's changed how we've done things here.
It really has, yeah, and it's not only affected games, but it's affected the way that we have to sort of create as well to a certain extent.
Yeah, we're all chomping at the bit to be able to get back and fling some foam at people.
Absolutely. So, how do you make assembly work in your your work? Do you just sort of have like all of the bits on hand, or do you sort of buy parts for every blaster you make?
Usually, regarding parts for blasters, it's almost always we buy what we need for the blaster we're currently building. We try not to do too many at once, because I've learned that if you do too many blasters at once, it goes a bit wrong, and you don't get the quality that I'm going for if you're doing too much. So, as you may see yourself, you'll get an order from us of a couple of motors and some wheels every few weeks as we build a new blaster. There is some things we like to keep in stock, springs and whatnot, but mostly everything is done.
Yeah, the harder to get things that we have to go further afield with. We kind of get, if we need one, we'll order 3 or 4, etc. So we've got some in stock in case someone says, "Can we have, can you build us one of them as well?" So they don't then have to incur the long waiting time of trying to get it from abroad, especially a few months ago when we went through Brexit as well. That threw a curveball as well.
Yeah. So do you do painting from that space as well? Or
we're trying to do it outside.
Right.
But that's limited by the weather.
Yeah.
I do have a shed I've got where I do spray painting in, but it's been a while since we've needed to do any spray painting. Really, we really have gone very 3D with the blasters.
Well, I suppose that's the beauty about 3D printing, isn't it? There's probably more colours of filament available now than there are spray paints.
Yeah, and you're guaranteed it's going to be the right colour and it's going to turn out okay.
Yeah. To be fair, they have managed to ruin my bathroom with hydro dipping as well. So to point that out. My shower is now a lovely, shimmery blue, where it wasn't before.
That's his fault. I don't do that.
This is what happens when you leave them unattended and go to work, you see. My bathroom is hydro dips.
She did say it's a lovely shimmery blue, so that's a little bit of an endorsement.
Yes.
Yeah, it is good. I've been looking at various tools people have used, and I just wanted to show you my most useful tools, the ones I use the most in the workshop. got all this space, all these tools, and my main tools are scalpel, these pincers, and a screwdriver. That's the things I use the most.
It seems to be just the way everybody, goes analog. At the end of the day, no matter what tools you've got, either 3D printing or laser cutting or machining, you always go analog, go back to a tool and a polishing cloth.
Yeah.
So back to Herb. What is your absolute favourite tool?
Well, I can't go for the file because Tom's already taken that. So I'm gonna have to go. 1 second. This is my ultimate. It's just a penknife, but I use it literally so often. I have it constantly on my desk just for deburring barrels, for just chopping stuff. It's just brilliant. Literally, this one blade is fantastic. But yeah, file is very handy, to be honest, because I use it on the lathe. I use it. There's another thing I made. This, before I had the milling machine, first thing I built in lockdown was this full metal rainbow pistol. And I filed from a solid bar of aluminium, this kind of grip thing here. And it took so long, but, a file, you're really not limited to a file and a device. It's brilliant. As long as you've got the time to put in, which obviously you're there for a while, but yeah.
Very nice.
And back to FIB. You've already said your favourite tools, but interestingly, if there was a tool that you could have that you don't have at the moment, which you think would completely revolutionise the way you work, what do you reckon it would be?
Oh, bench top lathe for me. Do our own barrels and stuff.
That would be quite cool. Yeah. I don't know. More printers.
More printers. Well, you've certainly got the space for more printers.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I can definitely see some empty shelf space in there.
Somewhere in here.
Yeah, another printer maybe.
I quite fancy playing with resin printers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that they can do some very nice, intricate work with that. It could be quite.
Yeah, from what I understand, it's not particularly strong, but the detail that you can get out of it is crazy.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's awesome. The same question to you as well, Herb.
Yeah.
What do you not have that you want?
Each time I buy a new machine, I'm like, on to the next one. What do I need now? Well, my next one will be a bandsaw, like a horizontal, for chopping off metal, because I've been mainly doing aluminium and acetal and stuff like that. They're fine to chop with a hacksaw, but once you start doing steel, oh my god, the hacksaw does not cut it. Literally just there for hours and hours. So yeah, I think bandsaw would be nice, but again, I'm running out of room.
Shelves, maybe you need shelves.
Yeah. You don't need a bed, do you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah, on the floor, I suppose, or a flip out one would be nice.
Damn, that's nice.
Yeah.
A lot of blank wall space.
You can get metal cutting bandsaws which fold away, can't you? Or you could get one of the portable ones and make a mount for it, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking almost getting rid of the drill press here, because once I got the milling machine, I don't really use it. So because it's just so much nicer, it's much smoother to use the milling machine for drilling.
Well, I suppose, yeah, you can drill on a mill, but you can't mill on a drill.
Yeah, exactly. So perhaps I'll be, because it's almost like a little stock zone here. Underneath there, I've got all sorts of long bits of metal and stuff. So that could be a whole little zone of chopping things out, perhaps. But yeah, no, a resin printer would be very cool as well. Though, for doing turnarounds, I've been working on the links recently, and doing all those kind of air sealing parts that are super intricate would be very handy with the SLA printer, because you can get also the perfect air seal as well as detail.
Okay, that's interesting.
Well, if you do those in resin, we'll have some.
Oh, I mean, that will involve me getting a resin printer first, and the fumes and stuff. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
That's awesome. I think that's pretty much it, isn't it?
Already?
We've got 3 minutes left. The little voice just popped into my ear. We've got 3 minutes left. So, last thing before we go. Sorry?
I'm just trying to be interesting for 3 more minutes.
Yeah. Just be interesting for 3 more minutes. Go for it. Go.
No. We can show you things. We got pretty things hanging up. There we go.
So, do you store all of your blasters in your workshop as well then?
Yes. Yeah, or else they'll just be everywhere. They'll just be on. I've only recently got this hanger, and it's coming really, really useful for just storing everything.
Yeah.
And then it just goes on the shelves and just goes everywhere.
Yeah. I have to say, Herb, that there doesn't appear to be a blaster wall behind you, which concerns me.
Oh, well, now you mention it, I have got a bit of a blaster wall going on over here.
Oh, okay.
Oh, very nice.
There you go.
Like that, there. Yeah, lots of springers, as you can see. I've got a Sobek up here, and then a shotgun that I worked on during last Foam Fest, and I'm thinking of reviving that. I'll get it down. It's a mag-fed shotgun.
Oh, wow.
So some of you may have seen this, but it's like that, and it's actually got barrels, so the shell is auto rotating via the front of this plunger here, and it rotates it in line with these 3 barrels, so you actually get a functional barrel with it. But it's a bit kind of, you can see it's not the most smooth, so I kind of want to revisit that project. What other projects I've got? Oh yeah, I've got this. This is a very rough prototype of a suction pistol that I'm working on. So the barrel is actually going through the plunger, and it's going to be sucking in air from behind and kind of pulling the dart forward rather than pushing it. And that's going to let me, so almost like a bow, so you just do that. And so we'll pop one up on the mag. We'll see if it actually works. It's a bit like finicky. It's got a dart gate at the front in there that's powered by magnets, and that flips open when you prime it. But yeah, this is I was hoping to have something to show here, but it's a work in progress. Yes.
That's amazing. Well, we've sort of just run out of time, so thank you very much to Herbmeister, and thank you very much to Fancy Impact Blasters, guys. Yeah. It's been lovely looking around your workshops. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For community news, mods, members, and more. Thank you Foam Fest Live for once again supporting Women of Nerf.
And now we join Kevin from UKNERFWAR again in his workshop with Monkeytron Collective and the folks from Orion Blasters. Over to you, Kev.
Welcome back, guys. Welcome back to Foam Fest Live. We're still talking about workshops. I have with me right now Ryan and Jesse from Silverfox Industries, all the way over in the US. And we also have Al from Monkeytron Collective up in Scotland. So, first of all, I'd like to talk to you, Ryan and Jesse. How are you guys doing?
Good. It's a little early over here.
There's more time travelers, but you're in the past.
Yeah, it seems to be that way.
So, do you want to tell us a little bit about you guys and what you do, and then we'll have a snoop around your workshop?
So we're Silverfox Industries, if that wasn't obvious. We basically do a lot of different things. 3D printing and
resin casting. building blasters for customers.
Apologize, it's really early.
That's right. We're here with you guys. Is there any particular types of blaster that you produce more of, or is it sort of anything really?
I mean, it's really anything, but mainly it's been springers lately, like caliburns and lynxes and stuff.
Okie dokie. Do you produce your own hardware kits for them, or do you use
for the most part? Yeah, we buy certain things like the machine flat bar from Dan over at Orion, but pretty much everything else we make or buy from the creators.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about your workshop. Where is it? How big is it?
It's kind of all over the house. We just moved into a new house, so getting used to like the layout of it and remodeling the place to fit our needs has been kind of an adventure. Right now, like all of our power tools and stuff, they would be being used in the garage, but whenever I need to use them, since there's so much construction waste in the garage, I have to take them outside and use them on a makeshift table.
And our garage doesn't have electricity right now, so that's a whole.
Yeah, that would help. But mainly, the rest of it is like it's in our basement. We have an inventory room, a printing room, and like a shipping hallway, I guess.
And an office.
Oh, and an office. Yeah, I mean, but whatever.
So you've got a video to show us of a walk around your office?
Not a video, just photos.
Just a load of pictures. Do you want to show us the pictures and just talk us through it, really?
Sure. All right. Let's see. Where is my cursor? Oh, there it is. All right. So, do you see the photo up on the screen?
I do.
All right. So this is our inventory room. From the outside, it's kind of a small thing, but I think we've maximized the space with a bunch of shelving. As you can see on the right, there's filament. Lots of filament.
Like a lot of filament.
Yeah, pretty much everything on the top two shelves is either unopened or, well, that's a lie. There's a bunch of open stuff, but most of the open stuff gets put into bins that can kind of seal. And then we got some bins on the left here. If I go to the next photo, you can see this better. There's a bunch of bins here. Some worker products that we're still trying to figure out like the best layout on the shelves to have them. And obviously this is all still like a work in progress as we still have like stuff on the ground, but.
Yeah, I think the one thing that we've realized with workshops and stuff is to not make anything permanent until you have time to actually like feel the flow and see where you're kind of going and grabbing, so that way you can make tweaks and stuff along the way. So.
All right, and then the next one here, this is our printer room. Currently we have 7 Prusa Minis and 6 Mark III S's. We have 2 other Prusa Minis that we're still trying to like find room to set up. But yeah, they're pretty much running like 24/7.
So what's the difference between the 2 models? Why have you got those 2 different types?
So the Mark IIIs have a larger build volume, and the Minis kind of started as like, well, they're cheaper and they can still print pretty much everything that we need. So we got one of them, and it kind of just ballooned from there. You can fit more into one space, as shown here. But yeah, I mean, they pretty much print the same, if not better sometimes. I know some people have had some issues with the minis, and certainly Prusa themselves have had some issues, but we've pretty much got them figured out at this point. And then to the right here, we have a blank space that we're currently setting up a resin printer. And a bunch of extra parts. And then last photo. This is our shipping hallway. It's basically the space outside of the print room.
Right.
And it's between our office. All our orders go into like individually marked bins so that they don't get mixed up with other stuff. All of our packing material is spread between here and the inventory room, and things get packed and weighed and then put into a crate that we then take upstairs and take to the post office.
Yeah, you can kind of see it, but what's actually hidden under that table is a whole bunch more filament. The overflow.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of unopened filament there, just kind of like stacked, because we didn't have room for it in the inventory room.
Yeah, so we're still trying to get the flow. Eventually, we think on the walls we'll probably do like pegboard or something and get like bins going to make it even more utilized.
More shelves.
Yep.
But yeah, go ahead.
Do you have like a dedicated area where you do assembly then of
kind of, but it isn't. Yeah, if you can kind of see behind us, it's a workbench that I made at some point, and well, a few years ago, I guess. But I basically just have all these like part bins that have screws and threaded rod and barrel material and stuff that I just kind of go down the line as like an assembly thing, or put them into a little bowl and then go sit at my desk and assemble it.
Yeah, our office right now is also in a war zone happening because we're trying to also set up our recording station and whatnot, which also will open up another kind of workbench for us.
Okay.
So it's kind of a disaster. So we didn't take a photo, but it's going to basically, it's just our 2 desks and eventually 2 workbenches with a lot of tiny little bins to hold all the tiny little screws.
Yeah, I imagine that gets a bit hectic sometimes.
Sometimes
having boxes of small parts all over the place.
Yeah. For the most part, though, like they're all in these containers that you can get from like Home Depot or Lowe's, hardware stores that the little bins can like fit into, and then you can close up and lock it. But makes for easier storage, but kind of be tedious sometimes.
Yeah, I want to just quickly talk about something that Jesse said, that you're sort of still getting used to the flow of your workspace. And I think that's quite an interesting point, because when you start building a dedicated workspace, it often changes a lot as you find that you get used to using it.
Yeah, so, like you figure out like what works and what doesn't. And you kind of figure that out early on, and then like you just keep evolving it.
Yeah, so the way you've got it all set up at the moment, is that sort of how works best for you at the moment? Is there any plans to change it, or?
I mean, there's never really usually plans to change it. It just kind of happens as it needs to happen. But I mean, it works for us for the moment, but there's definitely things that I would like to change that we just don't really have the time for at the moment, because we've been up until yesterday, we were living basically at two places.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you
and
literally just moved in there.
Yeah.
yeah.
Like we've been technically occupying this house for the past couple years, but we only just recently finished a bunch of the remodel work to allow us to actually live here.
Yeah.
So.
And our biggest next hurdle is the garage, which is going to be our actual ultimate shop. Which is going to be it's going to be fun, but it's also really challenging because we have to like design a whole new shop in the garage and build all more workbenches, which will be huge for us. But we have lots of different plans on that. A big one that Ryan's been looking at is creating like a really ultimate miter saw workbench, for cutting all the hardware, and kind of building in like a cool measuring tool into that workbench that houses the miter saw.
Yeah. It's interesting because I think having one space where you can do everything it helps improve workflow, and it makes everything just more streamlined, doesn't it? When you have
absolutely.
When you have to keep moving room to room to go from your assembly to your printing and everything, it makes it more stressful.
It definitely does. We literally moved our business into the house at the beginning of this year. So we've been kind of like messing with our layout and flows and stuff with it. But before that, we had our printers in like 2 different rooms running, and that was horrible because then you're filming, and I think you actually ended up in 3 different rooms somehow. And it was a nightmare. And then like the inventory was in a whole nother room. So it's like literally like half your day you're just trying to find your stuff and figuring out what's going on before you can actually start assembling blasters or putting together your customers' orders. So we've been getting a lot more efficient recently.
Yeah, it's exciting that you're designing you're turning your garage into the workspace, but you're designing it from scratch, so you can lay it out exactly how you want it to, right from the ground up. It's going to be quite exciting to see it when it's done.
Yeah, I think it'll be really nice.
So moving over to you, Al. Are you there, Al?
Yes, hello.
Oh, you are? Oh, marvellous. Moving over to you. Tell us a bit about your workspace. I know you've got a video to show us, haven't you?
We have. I think there's a little video just coming up, and it'll show you. I couldn't live stream from the workshop because it's actually underneath the house, and the Wi-Fi signal down there is awful. So we made a little, just a quick 2-minute quick guide round. Try to keep it short and sweet. Just give you an idea of the space. I mean, our big thing is cosmetics. We love painting blasters and doing funky designs and all that. And we produce a lot because we do a lot of the Comic Cons, and we do the festivals and all that stuff. So we produce a lot of painted blasters as stock for our stall to take about. So we were producing them on a kind of industrial scale. So we needed a little dedicated space, and we just had this little space under the house, and we've kind of made it work. So I think Bob's going to play the video here, and we'll have a look. Hello there, welcome to Monkeytron Collective, and you are watching Foamfest Live. Foamfest! Foamfest! At Monkeytron Collective, we're probably most well known for our painted blasters, and we do a lot of them. And people are always saying to us, "Wow, you must have a really big workshop." But the truth of the matter is, we don't really have a big workshop. It's very small. And so we're just going to have you a quick show about what we've got today. So here we are in the Monkeytron workshop, and as I said before, it's actually really quite small. It's not very big whatsoever. It's just I think dimension-wise, it is 8 feet by 8 feet. But this entire wall to this side, we lose about 2 feet off that because it is taken up by the heating system for the house. So realistically, it's about 8 foot by 6 foot, and it's pretty tiny and not really much room. And we'll just give you a quick look round. So we'll start at the back here. These are our spray booths, incredibly important piece of equipment we bought here at Monkeytron Collective. They allow us to spray paint all year round in a kind of controlled environment inside the workshop here. Really quite handy. We have lots of spray paint here. We use pretty much exclusively automotive spray paint from Halfords here in the UK. We have a plethora of different colours and primers and stuff there. Here are acrylic paints, which we use for a lot of our detailing, dry brushing, and yeah, they just let us add different depth to lots of our paint jobs. Up the top here, just lots of bits and bobs, masking tape. Here is glues and lubricants, lots of different things. Down here we have our paint brushes, screwdrivers, blades, things like that. Some blasters that have been worked on, internal parts here and there. Down to our main workbench here. This is pretty much our main workspace, very small, very compact, as I said. If we want to do electronics, we have to clear the table and do that, so we'll plug the soldering iron in, and then this set of drawers down here contains all our kind of electronic gear. So we have all our pliers, strippers, wire. This has got battery connectors, switches, MOSFETs, everything in there, solder. A compressor, which we can use with our airbrush and spray gun. Here we have a Dremel, which has one of these nice extended cords on it, which is really handy. We also have a hair dryer here, which we use for drying off paints in between, also good for heating up flywheels and bits. Back wall here we have sanding stuff, fiberglass stuff, 2K resin, which we use for lots of different things, mainly cosplay stuff. Cosplay helmet I'm working on just now, Mandalorian helmet. Power tools, so drill, hot glue, heat gun, sander, heater for when it's cold. Down here, these are lots of spare parts. This is custom decals. This is mainly kind of accessories for blasters. In the back here, blasters to be worked on. Again, underneath, blasters to be worked on, more stocks, scopes, accessories. Down here we have some darts for testing blasters, different blasters in various states of completion. Projects we're working on, big cosplay sword I'm working on. This is hydrographic films at the back, some more blasters in the back there. And our chronograph, we have a nice pro chronograph, which is really handy. Again, some more blasters that have been worked on. And in this corner, power tools. So we've got a workbench there, which we can take outside and set up these big bench power tools. So we've got a nice belt sander and grinder there, which is really handy. And a big chop saw. And this is Mel's Longshot and my Nexus Pro, which we often use for target practice in the garden because they're our current favourite blasters right now. So there we go. The workshop is really quite small. Just behind me we've got our little blaster wall with a few of our kind of favourite personal blasters on it. We've not got massive space for a blaster wall, but we keep those ones there because we really love them and they mean a lot to us, some of them. So yeah, there you have it. Workshop, very small, very compact, but we make it work. It's what we have, and I think we do all right out of it. So anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll get back to FilmFest Live.
So yeah, that's pretty impressive. So we've gone from the workflow of the Silverfox Industries workshop to what looks like organised chaos in your workshop.
Yeah, it's a bit messy in there. There's a lot going on in a small space. But yeah, the first part of the video there was the shed, and much like yourself, we got to a point where our entire house was covered in Nerf blasters, and it got to the point if we wanted to do anything in the house, we had to move a pile of blasters to have dinner, or to cook dinner, or to sit down, and we got to the point, and it was really getting on our nerves, so we thought we'd need a dedicated space to get everything and make the house a kind of Nerf-free zone. So we got the shed, and everything goes in the shed, so it's full of all our personal loadout gear and all the supplies for the Comic Cons and everything. Obviously we do the target range, and we've got the throne of foam, the big Nerf throne in there, and that we take about to the conventions. And we shoved everything into the shed, and then we set the workshop space up as well. And it was just this little room under the house with a bench in it, and we've slowly filled it up with stuff over the years. And it's been we've produced a lot of stuff out of such a small space, and it's
Yeah, that's actually quite impressive, because I see the things that come out of your workshop, and now having seen the workshop, it sort of doesn't really seem possible. But
yeah, it is. We've got, obviously, we do one of our. You were talking about the favourite tools earlier on. Probably our most important thing we've got was the little spray booths that we have. So we have these two little spray booths stacked on top of each other. And obviously, being in Scotland, our weather's even worse than it is for you guys down south. So it's constantly wet and cold here. So spray painting outside is not an option most of the year round. So at least we can then the little room where the workshop is. It's actually quite warm. It's got the heating system for the house, so it ticks over with a bit of heat constantly. So it's got quite a nice atmosphere for painting in there, and we can spray in the spray brews, and it vents all the fumes out. And then we've got some shelves there where we can let the stuff dry. And I can spray 2K paints, and they'll dry overnight in there as well. And getting into the 2K spraying with the compressor and everything has just been, it's kind of revolutionised how we do it. And we kind of got into that through Tom from Data Services, who was on earlier. He got us into using the more kind of automotive techniques for that kind of stuff. I don't have a background in any of that. We come at this purely from a kind of artistic point of view. Both me and Mel are kind of wannabe artists and like doing that kind of stuff rather than a kind of technical background. So
yeah, it's interesting to see that even with a small workspace that's full of everything, if you've got the right tools and the right products, you can really make it work, and you can produce amazing things even from sort of a relatively humble space.
Yeah,
it's quite amazing to see that, actually.
Yeah, I mean, speaking about the workflow as well, we have to do it. It has to be done very much in stages as well. So, if we've got a Comic-Con coming up and we need some stock for the store for the stall, we need to produce maybe 7 or 8 or a dozen blasters. So it'll be a case of we'll spend an evening stripping down all those blasters. So strip them down, take the parts out, all the parts into different tubs, and then they'll get sanded. We generally do the kind of sanding outside, just out the door of the shed in the open. So that'll done one night, and then they'll get washed, and then they'll dry overnight. The next night they'll rotate them through the spray brews, getting all the primer done, leave them overnight. The next night will then be all the base coats, and then leave them to dry overnight. And so we have to work in stages like that, because there's not a lot of space. I can't have loads of projects lying about at once. We have to do them in kind of different segments.
Again, it's that theme of, if you have a smaller space, you have to be ruthlessly organised with it.
Yeah.
Whereas if you've got a larger space, you can sort of be a little bit more fancy free.
Yeah.
So before we go, over to the Silverfox guys, if there was one tool, one thing that you could have that would revolutionise the way you work, what would it be?
Oh man, I would really, really either like a lathe or a mill. It'd be really nice.
Start producing your own metal parts for the blast.
Yeah, pretty much.
I suppose that helps with supply as well, because you can just buy the stock material and then produce everything. It just
exactly.
Yeah. The same question for you, Al.
For us, it would probably just be bigger spray brews and a bigger compressor to paint more, because that's kind of what we like doing. I mean, we know enough people in the community who do the 3D printed parts and stuff, so if we need them, we'll just contact one of those guys. I've not got time to invest in 3D printing myself. We'll get into that side of the hobby. Yeah, I think I'd rather just go with a bigger painting area to get be able to do bigger blasters and more of them.
Marvellous. Okay, well, thank you very much, guys. We've nearly run out of time. Thank you to Ryan and Jesse from Silverfox Industries. I know you got up silly early in the morning to come and talk to us, and I really, really appreciate it.
Well,
it's been a blast having you guys.
Yeah, it's been fun. Thanks.
And the same to you, Al. Well, you didn't get up early, but it's been a pleasure having you anyway.
Yeah. and we'll see you again in a minute. I think we're coming back on to do an update in a minute. So.
Well, thank you very much, everybody. It's been a blast.
Thank you.